The month of October is upon us.
The time for witches and ghouls, ghosts, 80s slashers, my wistful memories of being a gothy boy a few years back, and candy and pumpkins and my god, I love Halloween. But Dylan, Halloween isn't until the end of the... Halloween is a whole month holiday, bitches.
Yes. So, I will of course be watching scary movies all month and eating just enough candy for me to feel even more sad about myself when I look into the mirror. But wait.
I have a YouTube channel now. I guess that means I should start making some sort of horror-themed content on this channel. But where to start?
Well, I suppose I could always start with the best Halloween movie ever. Transition now.
John Carpenter's 1978 horror classic Halloween is a film that needs no introduction. Hell, I feel like most people will have at least seen the iconic mask of Michael Myers or heard of the movie by now, even if you've never seen it for yourself. One could say that if you're dipping your toes into the vacuumous sea of the horror film genre, Halloween is up there with like the top 25 films you will hear about right from the start and probably be highly recommended. But why is that? Why does this little independent film still hold up after all these years? Why does it strike fear into its audiences? But most of all, why should you care? What if you're a newbie to horror and you want to know why this film is worth your time? Or what if you're one of those people who only care and watch stuff or listen to stuff that was created within the span of their short time of existence? Why should you watch this film now and care why it is so important? For starters, let me just say that the way this film opens is immediately attention-grabbing. We start by seeing a house, and our POV is from the perspective of someone creepily stalking around it, and eventually entering through the back door. The tension builds alongside the music, and I love how, at the exact point when the music starts, is when the lights are first turned off. Anyway, this stalker eventually puts on a clown mask and then brutally stabs this topless teenager. But, as it turns out, the killer was her younger brother, Myers. Everything about this opening works well. The cinematography is great, atmospheric, and is used to slowly build the tension. The music used here, composed by Carpenter himself by the way, is excellent, and again adds to a layer of tautness and suspense, as well as just sounding so fucking creepy. I mean, this film has some of the best horror music I have ever heard in any horror film, and I've seen a lot of horror films, so trust me when I say it's one of the best. Like, try walking through your home in the dark, all alone, with this music playing. You can't do it. You just can't do it, okay? Alright. Then there's the whole fact that instead of showing the blood and guts, we simply see the knife stabbing up and down. It's enough imagery for us to get the point, and lets our imaginations fill out the rest. And then ultimately, when we find out who the killer is, it is surprising, but also adds another layer of creepiness to it. His expression is so vacant. There's no sense of sadness or anger, not even a wicked, evil little smile. Just nothing. It makes it feel so much more random. Speaking of random, let's keep that word random and stuff like that aside. Just put it in the box, alright? We'll be needing it later.
Excuse me,
Oh,
Laurie.
Mr. Brackett, I'm sorry, Mr. Brackett.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you.
That's all right.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
I could break down every scene in this film like this. You have amazing cinematography, like the way Haddonfield is shot in this airy sort of way. It really builds a town that many could relate to living in, with it being a suburban piece of normality. You have the teenagers secretly getting it on, the schools, the neighbors, and the people just sort of knowing each other. And of course, the haunted house. You know, the one you and your friends or family knew about that was abandoned, cursed, or haunted in some way. Something bad happened there. Something outside the norm of this normal little town. It is also shot well to convey the sense of atmosphere during the night, especially when Michael Myers is on screen. Then the music is just so fucking excellent through this whole film, constantly building the suspense in many ways, building upon the character and intimidation one may have towards the shape known as Michael Myers. I especially love the chase music in this film. It really is on the edge of your seat, sort of exciting, but at the same time, it's also slow, sort of like Michael Myers' slow walk. It's really quite brilliant, actually. This chemistry between music and what's playing on screen is done so well that it's just another example of how, even on a low-budget film such as this, it can be well put together. It can be well composed, well shot, and ultimately, in many ways, like my argument for Gojira, it emphasizes the lesson that limitation is the primer for innovation and creativity. Another aspect of the film that's excellently well done is the way it presents its characters. The bulk of the film taking place 15 years after the events of Michael killing his sister. To start, let me say that Dr. Loomis, the man who spent the last 15 years at first trying to reach the boy, and the other half trying to keep him locked up forever, is the movie. Like, he is literally the movie, arguably as much as Michael Myers is. Michael Myers is a character that we don't ever delve into the whys of what he does, or even who he is as a person on a basic level. He is literally the shape of evil, thus why in the credits he's referred to as such. This is a double-edged sword, as it makes him more scary that you know so little about him. He is unfathomable, and beyond the fear of being watched, stalked, and brutally killed, Michael Myers also represents a very Lovecraftian horror of the unknown, as well as the fear of evil itself. A sort of evil that we almost want to pretend makes a person more of a monster than man, even if they are just as human as you or me. Well, I mean, maybe not me, but whatevs. The other side of this, though, is in order for him to stay as this shape, he can never develop, because the moment we know the why is the moment he becomes tangible, or worse, relatable, which can make characters richer, of course, but in this particular case, takes away rather than adds. A concept, might I say, that the sequels never quite understood. This is remedied by the inclusion of Dr. Loomis, who's tracking the crazed killer down. And his primary purpose is to warn the comfortable town of Haddonfield that things are not as they seem, and that the peace has been disturbed by a force of evil they could never understand as he has. This works wonderfully because it's through Loomis we as the audience can feel and see what it does to a man to study and try to reach into the black void of Michael Myers.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
And how after seeing the pure evil that he is, Loomis is gladly willing to put his life on the line to keep the world away from this evil. In many ways, Michael could almost be seen as a vague force of nature. And going further, you could see Haddonfield as a metaphor for innocence and American suburbia, simpler times. And Michael Myers is the monster that is reality, the coldest depths of the human psyche, and by extension, the truth. After all, innocence, while a virtue, is by itself ignorance of the truth. And if Michael Myers is the truth, and Dr. Loomis is the man protecting the innocent from it, well then, where does that leave Laurie Strode?
Ah, yes, our main protagonist. And how long did it take us to get here? No one's finishing this fucking video.
Laurie Strode is interesting as she and her 2 friends are the ones that Michael Myers ultimately decides to stalk and murder that night. And of the 3, she is much more virtuous than the other 2. Her friends are Nancy, who is...
Well, now all they took was some Halloween mask, a rope, and a couple of knives. Who do you think it was?
It's hard growing up with a cynical father.
Aren't you going to be late?
Huh?
I said, aren't you going to be late?
He shouts, too.
a smart-ass bitch, but we love her for it, so it's all okay. And Linda, who is...
I have to get my hair done at 5, and the dance is at 8. I'll be totally wiped out.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow.
Totally.
Totally annoying, and totally stupid, and totally kind of a slut, and totally... dead. So I mean... okay. But Laurie is a bookworm. She's shy, but actually loving and rather motherly sort of girl. When she goes to babysit, she seems to genuinely care for Tommy and eventually Lindsay as well, because she is just like that naturally. She's not a total bore or anything, but you can tell that she is being more cautious than her two friends, and might even live vicariously through them in many ways. This is important because we end up caring about her life as well as the children's, because it's not forced or has what I like to call Rob Zombie syndrome. But trust me, we'll get to that soon. Thus, when Michael starts stalking about the night, there is not just a suspense from the atmosphere and the music like before, but now because we care about these characters. And with us constantly cutting back to Loomis building Michael up, it makes the whole thing feel so hopeless and desperate. Add in the fact that Tommy was told by a bunch of bullies to watch out for the boogeyman, and he's the only one catching a glimpse of the masked psycho, and now we have something rather beautiful happen, actually. The boogeyman, a vague concept that children hear stories of and fear. What else does that sound like? The boogeyman, to a child, is anything they can imagine to be their worst fears. A blank canvas for the mind to paint upon. A shape of pure evil. Tying Michael to the idea of the boogeyman is brilliant because it adds to him and makes the fear of him feel almost childlike, like you somehow always were scared of Michael Myers. If you were unlucky enough to know of him.
Or, in other words, this film is really complex with the way it conveys its antagonist as ultimate evil, and how pure evil in the concept of the loss of innocence by a truth, even a false truth, is understandable on some tangible level, even to a child, even if that truth is known by the boogeyman.
So why does any of this matter? Well, because it's layered, interesting, and shit, son, if you haven't seen this movie yet and you're still not convinced, well, maybe it's not for you. But remember how we stuffed that word random aside for later? Well, later is now. That's the magic ingredient in this film. The random. Tell me what all these locations have in common. Dracula's Castle, the Carnival in Carnival of Souls, the Bates Motel, the Sawyer House from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Camp Crystal Lake, hell, any haunted house, insert haunted lake, swamp, whatever you want to say. Well, they're all pretty fucking scary. They're full of danger, death, they're mysterious, and like a fairy tale, transfer the person into a different world, a place where the monsters reside. And rather like the open sea, are ruled by creatures that man has little power over. These are all terrifying concepts, and let us sink into the horror until we've drowned into the abyss that is the darkness of these situations. But in Halloween, the idea of this evil place and monster is different. Instead of you coming to the monster, stumbling upon it, the monster comes to you. That then begs the question, well, why? Why me? Why does the monster want to kill me? I didn't walk into his domain. It came to me. Well, that's just it, isn't it? There is no reason. It's random. It could happen to anyone, at any time. And maybe, even if it makes us feel safe that perhaps the monsters of the world are tucked away where they belong, somewhere out of reach, maybe the monsters are all around you. Always. And maybe, just maybe, the monster that you're so afraid of, is inside of you. Inside of us all.
And that, my friends, is what makes Halloween a masterpiece in my eyes. It's so much more than a slasher film. And trust me, I love me some slasher films. But Halloween is more than that. It's a piece of art. A scary, a little bit weird, perhaps a tad bit corny, and low budget, but still amazing piece of art.
And I think it's all these things combined and more that makes this film so well loved, remembered, celebrated, imitated, copied, but never replicated. And why you should give it a try if you haven't already. For me, it's a yearly tradition to watch the film with my family on Halloween night. And for me, I will always remember the way this film made me feel after watching it when I was much younger, and how I would be super afraid to go to the bathroom at night or walk into any room alone, even during the day.
That's all for now, but if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to stab that like button hard. And subscribe for more content soon. I'll be making more horror-themed videos all month, and next on my chopping block is...
Hello! Hey, get your ass downstairs and wash your hands, you little shit. I'm not listening!
It's gonna be painful.